Most Jeep owners spend thousands on mods that look cool, but do absolutely nothing to keep their Jeep alive. Meanwhile, a handful of overlooked upgrades can prevent catastrophic engine, transmission, axle, and frame failures before they happen. Today we're counting down the 10 smartest mods that can add years to your Jeep's life, and the number 1 could save your transmission. Number 10 is the heavy-duty differential cover. We're starting cheap because this one costs less than a nice dinner and guards a part worth thousands. Your factory diff cover is stamped steel, barely thicker than a soda can. It's the only thing standing between a sharp rock and your ring and pinion gears. One solid hit on the trail cracks that thin housing and dumps your gear oil across the dirt. Now those gears grind themselves to powder with nothing left to protect them. A fresh ring and pinion set plus the labor runs well over $1,000, and that's assuming you even limp home instead of getting winched off the mountain. A proper heavy-duty cover from ARB, Rugged Ridge, or AFE shrugs off rock strikes that would fold the factory tin. However, the protection isn't even the best part. A lot of these covers hold an extra half quart to a full quart of gear oil, and more fluid means cooler running gears on long highway pulls and brutal trail days. Cooler oil is oil that lasts, which means your ring and pinion last too. The smart ones also come with a magnetic drain plug that grabs metal shavings out of the oil before they get dragged through your bearings and chew them apart. Where guys blow it is grabbing the cheapest cover on the internet, skipping the right gasket, and ending up with an oil leak on the driveway by week 2. Do it once, do it properly, and this cover outlives the Jeep. Your gears are armored now, therefore it's time to stop a killer most owners don't even know is hiding in their axles. Number 9 is the Axle Breather Relocation Kit. This is the hidden gem almost nobody talks about, and it saves your entire drivetrain for the price of some hose and fittings. Every axle, your transfer case, and your automatic transmission all have a little vent called a breather, and from the factory it sits only a few inches above the frame. When your hot differential rolls into a cold puddle or a creek crossing, the air inside instantly cools and contracts, and that creates a vacuum. That vacuum yanks water straight through the axle seals, or right down the low breather itself, into your gear oil. Water in your differential turns the oil milky and useless, then quietly destroys your ring and pinion, your carrier bearings, and any locker you paid good money for. The scary part is you often won't notice until the damage is already deep. A relocation kit from ARB or a simple extended hose setup runs those vents way up high into the engine bay, so it always breathes clean, dry air no matter how deep the water gets. It's an hour in the driveway with basic tools. And if you ever do suspect water got in, change that gear oil right away, because milky oil left sitting will pit your bearings within days. The mistake people make is relocating the front and rear axle vents, but forgetting the transfer case and transmission breathe too, so they leave 2 doors open for water to sneak in. Handle all 4 and your drivetrain stays sealed for life. Your gears are safe from water, but your engine is still gulping down something abrasive that sandpapers it from the inside. Number 8 is a proper snorkel. A snorkel gets laughed at as mall crawler jewelry, but what it actually does for your engine's lifespan is no joke. Your stock air intake sits around 2 feet off the ground, tucked behind the headlight, right in the dust cloud kicked up by your own tires and everyone in front of you. Dust is basically fine sandpaper, and every particle that slips past your filter scours the inside of your cylinders and wears your engine down years early. A snorkel moves that intake up to roof height, 70 inches or more off the ground, where the air is way cleaner. Your filter stays clean longer, and your cylinders wear slower, so the whole engine lives longer. That's the everyday benefit almost nobody mentions. The big one is water. If you ever cross a stream and your low stock intake sips water, that water gets sucked into your cylinders and bends your connecting rods instantly. Mechanics call it hydrolock, and it can total an engine in 1 second. A sealed snorkel raises that intake above the waterline so you can ford deeper with confidence. Now I'll be straight with you. If your Jeep never sees dust or water, a snorkel won't change your life. But if you actually wheel it, this is real engine insurance. The rookie mistake is a sloppy install that leaves gaps, because then you're pulling in unfiltered air and doing more harm than good. Clean air keeps your engine breathing easy. However, clean air won't save you when a single rock punches a hole in the one part holding all your oil. Number 7 is a full set of skid plates. Underneath your Jeep, hanging out in the open with almost no protection, are the exact parts that will strand you and cost you a fortune. Your oil pan, your transmission pan, your transfer case, and your fuel tank all sit low and exposed, and any one of them can be cracked open by a rock you never even saw. A punctured oil pan bleeds your engine dry in minutes, and a seized engine is often the end of the whole truck. That's the failure a good set of skid plates prevents. Steel or thick aluminum armor bolts underneath and takes the hit so your expensive parts never do. Steel plates are the toughest and the cheapest, while aluminum saves weight but costs more, so pick based on how hard you actually run the truck. Think of it as a suit of armor for the parts that would otherwise end your day and your wallet. This isn't only for hardcore rock crawlers either, because even a gravel road or a hidden stump in tall grass can do the damage. The parts you're protecting cost thousands, while the plates cost a fraction of that. Where people go wrong is buying flimsy stamped covers so thin they bend on the first real impact and fold straight into the very part they were supposed to shield. Get proper thickness armor from a name that off-roaders actually trust, bolt it upright, and it protects your drivetrain for the life of the Jeep. Your underside is bulletproof now, but armor can't fix the slow damage that oversized tires are doing to your drivetrain every single mile you drive. Quick pause. If your goal is to keep your Jeep running for hundreds of thousands of miles, I put everything I know into my 500,000-mile Jeep blueprint. It's got maintenance schedules, fluid intervals, and the preventative fixes that save owners thousands. If that sounds useful, the link's in the description below. Number 6 is a re-gear to match your tires. The moment you bolt on 35s or 37s, your factory gears became wrong, and they've been punishing your drivetrain ever since. Bigger, heavier, taller tires need far more force to spin, and your stock gearing was designed for the small tires that came on the truck. So your engine strains, your transmission works overtime, and on the highway, that 8-speed auto starts hunting between gears because it can never settle into the right one. All that hunting builds heat, and heat wears out clutches and drivetrain parts fast. One owner online burned through a clutch every single year after going to 35s until he finally re-geared. A proper re-gear swaps the ring and pinion to give your engine back the muscle it lost, so the whole drivetrain stops fighting itself. Most shops point 35-inch guys toward roughly 4.88 gears, and 37-inch guys toward 5.13, though your exact number depends on your engine and how you drive. Run quality gears from Yukon, Nitro, or Motive, and get them installed by a shop that lives inside Jeep axles, because a botched job sounds like marbles in a blender and destroys the axle. And this is the part people get backwards. They try to fix the sluggishness with an engine tune instead of gears, which only forces the transmission to work even harder. Gears are the real fix. Your drivetrain is finally geared right. Therefore, let's talk about the failure that can literally rip the steering wheel out of your hands at 70 miles an hour. Number 5 is the real death wobble fix. If you drive a solid axle Jeep, you've either felt this or you live in fear of it. Death wobble is a violent, terrifying shake in your front end that usually hits after you clip a pothole or a bridge seam above 45 miles an hour, and it feels like the whole front axle is trying to tear itself off. It can strike any solid axle Jeep, from the old TJ to the newest JL and Gladiator. The root cause is almost never a single dramatic part. It's worn steering geometry, and the usual suspect is a loose or worn front track bar, followed by tired ball joints and tie rods. Bigger tires only speed that wear up. Now most people slap on a new steering stabilizer and call it solved. However, a stabilizer is just a shock absorber for your steering, and all it does is hide the shake for a while before it comes back worse. The real fix is tightening the geometry, a heavy-duty adjustable track bar and greasable ball joints from a brand like Dynatrac, torqued to spec. That not only kills the wobble, it stops the extra tire and part wear that loose steering causes, and it makes your front end last the life of the truck. This is a real safety issue, not just comfort. The government logged over 450 complaints on the JL alone, and a class action over the 2012 and 2013 JK settled for around $3,000 per owner. Fix the parts, not the symptom. Your steering feels like a solid block now, but the next thing that'll gut your engine hides inside your cooling system, and it can warp a cylinder head clean out of shape. Number 4 is a cooling system overhaul. The 3.6 Pentastar V6 that powers most modern Jeeps has a dirty secret, and it's made of plastic. The thermostat housing, the coolant crossover pipe, and the radiator end tanks are all plastic, and after thousands of heat cycles, they crack and leak. The water pump seals and bearings wear out too, and on top of all that, leftover casting sand from the factory can float through the system and clog it from the inside. None of that sounds scary until you understand what overheating does to this engine. When it runs too hot, it cooks the valve seat in cylinder number 2 and warps the cylinder head, which is the exact failure that plagued the 2011 through 2013 engines so badly that Chrysler extended the warranty to 10 years and 150,000 miles. So you fix it before it fixes you. Swap the plastic thermostat housing and crossover pipe for Dorman aluminum versions, drop in a fresh water pump, run a solid aluminum radiator, and flush the system with the correct coolant. While you're down there, clear the packed mud and leaves out of the radiator fins too, because a clogged radiator chokes your airflow and runs the whole engine hotter than it ever should. Cool coolant keeps that head alive. The mistake that wrecks people here is mixing the two coolant types, because the old orange HOAT and the newer OAT react into a thick brown sludge that clogs the radiator and heater core solid. Use the exact coolant your Jeep calls for, keep the system clean, and you dodge the single most expensive engine failure on the platform. Your engine runs cool now, however there's a plastic part buried in the valley of your V6 that leaks oil and coolant at the same time, and you won't see a single drop hit the ground. Number 3 is the aluminum oil filter housing. This one catches thousands of Pentastar owners completely off guard. It lives on the 3.2 and 3.6 engines across the Wrangler, the Gladiator, the Grand Cherokee, and half the lineup. Sitting right in the valley of your V6 is the oil filter and cooler housing, and from the factory, it's plastic. Thousands of heat cycles warp that plastic, the O-rings harden, and eventually it cracks and starts leaking both oil and coolant at the same time. And the sneaky part is the engine valley acts like a bowl, so up to a full quart of oil can pool down in there and evaporate off the hot engine before you ever see a drop on the ground. You just smell burning oil and wonder where it's going. In the worst cases, oil and coolant actually mix, and that's a death sentence for the engine. The permanent fix is the Dorman aluminum housing, part number 926959. Because it's aluminum, it expands and contracts with the aluminum block instead of fighting it, so it seals up and stays sealed. It's a cheap part that closes the book on one of the most common Pentastar failures for good. The mistake owners make is replacing the cracked plastic unit with another plastic unit, which just fails the same way a few years later, or cranking the filter cap down so hard they crack the housing on the spot. Go aluminum and be done with it. That leak is sealed forever, but the number 2 killer doesn't crack or leak at all. It eats your Jeep from the inside out, and by the time you spot it, the frame is already gone. Number 2 is frame rustproofing. Ask anyone why old Jeeps finally die, especially the XJ Cherokee and the TJ Wrangler, and the honest answer usually isn't the engine, it's the frame rotting out. The boxed steel frame has no factory drain holes, so water and road salt get trapped inside and rust it from the inside out, where you can't even see it happening. A neglected TJ living in a salt state can lose its frame in about 13 years, and once that frame is rotted, most people scrap the whole truck. You can rebuild almost any part on a Jeep. However, a rotted frame is usually the end. So you protect it early. Coat the frame with something like fluid film, POR 15, or a proper undercoating. Drill a few drain holes so trapped water can escape, and wash the salt and mud off the underside after every winter and every muddy trail. It's cheap, it's a little messy, and it saves the one part of your Jeep you truly can't replace easily. The mistake that ruins this is spraying coating right over existing rust without treating it first, because that just traps moisture underneath and speeds the rot up. Strip it, treat it, then seal it. Save the frame, and you've saved the entire truck. But the number 1 mod is the one Chrysler's own engineers understand better than anyone, because it decides whether your transmission sees 90,000 miles or 250,000. Number 1 is an auxiliary transmission cooler. Heat is what quietly kills automatic transmissions, every single one of them. The Automatic Transmission Rebuilders Association found that 90% of all transmission failures come down to overheating, and that number should stop you cold. Your transmission fluid wants to live between 175 and 195 degrees. The rule that mechanics live by is that every 20 degrees above 175 cuts your fluid life in half. Let it climb to 220 degrees, which happens easily, and that fluid is cooked in around 25,000 miles. Now the truly ugly part is your factory cooler barely helps. Testing has shown fluid entering the radiator's built-in cooler at 300 degrees and leaving at 240 to 270, which is only a 10 to 20% drop, nowhere near enough. Add a lift, throw on 35s, and tow up a mountain grade, and your transmission is baking itself alive. Towing is the worst offender of them all, because dragging weight up a hill pours a huge heat load straight into the fluid. A proper auxiliary cooler from Derail, Mishimoto, or Hayden mounts up front and pulls real heat out of that fluid, and paired with fresh synthetic ATF plus 4, it keeps the fluid alive for the long haul. That's the difference between a transmission that quits at 90,000 miles and one that rolls past 250,000. The one mistake to avoid is installing an undersized cooler with no thermostatic bypass, because then in winter your transmission never warms up, which is its own kind of damage. Always run a thermostatic bypass. Get this right, and every other mod on this list finally has a drivetrain worth protecting. So there's your list, from 10 to 1. Every one of these is legal, and everyone buys your Jeep real years and real miles. Which one surprised you the most, and which are you doing first? Drop it in the comments. I read every single one. And if you want your Jeep to outlive everyone else's, hit subscribe and click on the video on your screen right now. I'll see you there.